Some people and their cats have a very special connection. In a small town called Windsor, in Ontario, something amazing was about to happen between a woman and her cat. This story would show everyone how strong love can be, even between different kinds of animals and people. It would also show that real love can stay forever. It was a quiet afternoon in Windsor, Ontario. That's when Sophie Lane's life changed forever. Sophie had lived most of her grown-up life in this peaceful Canadian town. She worked as a librarian at the Windsor Public Library. She liked how the seasons changed each year. She loved walking by the Detroit River, and she enjoyed warm coffee in the little shops downtown. She often walked in Jackson Park, smelling the flowers in spring, and listening to the leaves fall in autumn. But more than anything, Sophie loved her cat, Julio. She met Julio 12 years ago on a warm spring morning. The air smelled like flowers and birds were singing. Her best friend Laura had asked her to visit the animal shelter just for fun. Sophie didn't plan to get a pet that day, but something special was waiting for her. At the shelter, in a tiny basket in the corner, was a small kitten with stripes and shiny golden eyes. He moved in a fun, playful way. When Sophie looked into his eyes, she felt something special in her heart. She reached out her hand, and the kitten jumped right into her arms, purring so loudly that the people at the shelter started laughing. She would never forget how warm and soft he felt on her chest. In that moment, Sophie knew they belonged together. She named him Julio, after a smart explorer from her favorite childhood book, The Journeys of Julio. Over the years, Julio became Sophie's best friend. Every evening, he waited by the window for her car. When she came home, he greeted her at the door, walking around her legs and making happy little sounds. At night, he curled up on her pillow, purring quietly while she read her books under her cozy lamp. Weekends were their favorite time. They spent slow mornings together, relaxing and happy. Sophie sat on the couch, holding Julio close. His soft breathing matched the sound of rain tapping on the windows. She loved Julio like a real best friend. She gave him healthy food, brushed his shiny striped fur, and took him to the vet every year to make sure he stayed healthy. When Julio was still a little kitten, Sophie followed the shelter's advice and got a tiny microchip put under his skin. It was a small way to help protect him, just in case. But nothing could prepare her for what happened one cool day in October. Julio was about 5 years old. Sophie was working in her small backyard garden. The air was cold and fresh, the leaves were golden, and she could smell wood burning in the neighborhood. She left the screen door open for just a moment to bring in some flower pots. But when she turned around, Julio was gone. At first, Sophie didn't worry. Julio had walked into the yard before and always came back. But this time, minutes turned into hours. And as the sun went down behind the trees, a heavy fear filled her heart. Her hands were shaking as she called his name into the cold evening. She walked through every alley and every street, calling Julio over and over until her voice hurt. She put posters on telephone poles, handed out flyers, and checked every animal shelter within 50 miles. She told the Windsor Essex County Humane Society and made sure her microchip contact info was always up to date, just in case someone scanned Julio and found her. Weeks turned into months, but Sophie didn't stop trying. Every night, she left a small bowl of food outside her door. Every morning, she checked shelters and websites, but there was never any sign of Julio. Every time she saw the food still there in the morning, it made her heart hurt all over again. The first Christmas without Julio was the hardest. She hung a small ornament on the tree with his name on it, a shiny silver bell with a blue ribbon. That night, she cried herself to sleep under the sparkling lights. Her friends told her maybe she should get another cat. But Sophie couldn't do that. She couldn't replace Julio. Years went by. The pain became a little smaller, but it never really went away. She moved to a new house closer to the middle of the city, but she kept her old phone number active. A small part of her, quiet but still hoping, believed Julio might find his way back. Sometimes on rainy nights, Sophie dreamed about Julio. She saw him at her doorstep, wet but alive. When she woke up, she had tears in her eyes. Then, 7 years later, on a rainy March morning, Sophie's phone rang. It was someone from the Windsor Essex County Humane Society. They had found a cat, an old striped cat, dirty and thin. He was wandering near an empty lot at the edge of town. At first, the shelter workers thought he was just a stray cat with no name. But when they scanned his microchip, they found out it was Julio. His name was registered under Sophie Lane, and the phone number was still her old one. Sophie stood still, tears filling her eyes. Could it really be true after all these years? Without wasting time, she grabbed her coat and rushed to the shelter. Outside, it was lightly raining, but Sophie didn't notice. Her heart was beating fast as she drove. She thought about Julio, the playful kitten, her faithful friend, the little cat that curled up on her pillow at night. At the shelter, they took her to a quiet room. Inside a cage, curled up in a small ball, was a weak striped cat. Sorry to pause the story, but please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us a lot. Thank you. The cat's fur was thin and messy. One of his ears was torn. His left eye was cloudy because it had an infection that was not treated. He looked very old and fragile. When Sophie softly said, "Julio Zerenia," the cat slowly lifted his head. He sniffed the air, his good eye squinting, like he was trying to remember something. Before he fully heard her voice, he smelled Sophie. A soft purr came from his chest, shaky and weak, but it showed he knew her. Sophie dropped to her knees and cried. She reached through the cage bars. Julio tried to stand, wobbled toward her, and pressed his thin body against her hand, making rough, broken sounds. The shelter workers stood quietly nearby, wiping their own tears. Carefully, Sophie picked Julio up. He rested his head against her, breathing in deeply. Julio smelled Sophie's scent, like he was making sure it was really her. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in a quiet, strong feeling that nothing could break. The vet told Sophie that Julio was very weak. He was very thin and hadn't eaten enough for a long time. His teeth were hurting, and he had infections that made him sick. His eye was badly hurt and might need surgery. He would need a lot of care, and he might not have much time left. But Sophie didn't think twice. She said, "I will do whatever it takes." With shaking hands, she finished the papers to bring Julio home. She had made a special place for him, a soft bed, a warm pad, and even his old toys she saved for all these years. When Sophie put Julio gently on the bed, he curled up and sighed deeply, like he finally felt safe and calm. The first days were very hard. Julio hardly ate anything. Sophie fed him with a small syringe, helping him take tiny sips of special food that gave him lots of nutrition. She gave him medicine, cleaned his sore eye, and sat with him for many hours, reading out loud, just like she used to when he was a kitten. Her voice, once a comfort, was now like a lullaby for Julio on long, unsure nights. Slowly, Julio started to get better. His fur became soft again. His thin body got a little stronger. He began to respond to Sophie's voice with small sounds and quiet purrs. One afternoon, Sophie shook a crinkly toy ball she kept for many years. Julio's ears twitched a little. With great effort, he hit the ball with his paw, a small sign that his old playful spirit was coming back. But the hard times he went through left marks. Loud sounds made him jump and hide under the couch fast. Sudden movements scared him a lot. Sophie learned to move slowly, talk very quietly, and give him lots and lots of patience. She put small night lights around the house so Julio would not feel scared in the dark. Sophie put small night lights all around the house. This stopped scary shadows from frightening Julio in the dark. In those first weeks, Julio followed Sophie everywhere. When she cooked, he sat right by her feet, quiet and calm like a little prayer. When she read books, he lay close against her side. Even when he was sleeping, he woke up to check if she was still near. He felt safe only when he could touch her hand or her clothes. Julio needed Sophie very much, and Sophie gave him all the love and comfort he needed. Just when things seemed to be getting better, something scary happened. One afternoon, while Sophie was cleaning the kitchen, Julio suddenly let out a loud, sharp cry and fell down. His body shook badly, and foam came from the corners of his mouth. "Julio!" Sophie dropped the cloth and ran to him. "What's happening to you?" she asked, her hands shaking. She tried to call for help but pressed the wrong numbers twice before she got through. "Windsor Emergency Pet Doctor, how can I help you?" a calm voice asked. "My cat," Sophie's voice was full of fear. "He's having a seizure. He just collapsed. Please help, I need help right now." "Bring him in immediately," the receptionist said. Sophie wrapped Julio in his soft blanket and rushed to her car. "Stay with me, Julio. Don't leave me now. Not again." At the clinic, Dr. Werner met Sophie at the front door. "I'm Dr. Werner," he said, gently taking Julio. "Please tell me exactly what happened." Sophie's voice was shaky. "He was fine 1 minute," she said. Then he suddenly cried out and fell down. "I found him 3 weeks ago after he had been missing for 7 long years." After a long wait, Dr. Werner came back with X-ray pictures. Mississippi Lane, we found something worrying, he said, pointing to a bright white spot on the image. There is a small piece of metal stuck deep inside Julio's belly. Sophie stared in shock. Since Julio was a stray cat, he was probably hurt years ago. Dr. Werner explained. His body wrapped the metal with scar tissue. But now it has moved and is pushing against nerves and maybe his stomach. Can you take it out? Sophie asked, her throat feeling tight. Yes, but I need to be honest about the risks, Dr. Werner said seriously. Julio is old and weak after living so long outside. The surgery is dangerous. What happens if we don't do the surgery? Sophie asked very quietly. If the metal moves more, it could make a hole in his stomach, which would cause a bad infection. Or it could press on blood vessels and cause more seizures or even worse. Dr. Werner explained. Then we have to do the surgery, Sophie said right away. The chance Julio might not survive the surgery is about 40%. Dr. Werner warned gently. And if you don't do the surgery, Sophie asked quickly, treat him, I don't think Julio would survive more than a few days. Sophie said strongly, then we must do the surgery. He didn't survive 7 years on the streets just to give up now. In the treatment room, Sophie visited Julio before the surgery. He was lying in an oxygen box with a tiny tube in his front leg. When she whispered his name softly, his ear moved a little. Hey, sweet boy, she said very gently. The doctors are going to help you get better. Be strong for me, please. Dr. Patel, the surgeon, came into the room. She explained, the metal is near very important parts inside him. The surgery will be very delicate. Will he survive? Sophie asked directly. Dr. Patel answered honestly, I cannot promise you that. But he has a chance to fight. If we succeed, we will take out something that has probably hurt him for many years. Sophie felt scared as she watched them take Julio away. Her heart was beating fast. The waiting room felt like a prison. Every minute was long, filled with worry and hope. She held Julio's old blanket close, crying and praying. The hours felt like forever. A nurse named Marcus came to give news. Dr. Patel found the metal, he said first. Later, there were problems. Julio's blood pressure went down. But Dr. Patel made it better. Sophie just nodded, too scared to ask more, too afraid to hear if she might lose Julio forever. Finally, after what felt like endless waiting, Dr. Patel came out, still wearing her surgical cap. Her eyes looked tired, but she had a small smile. The surgery was harder than we thought, she said, showing Sophie a small container with a sharp piece of metal inside. This was stuck inside Julio. The metal was deep inside old scar tissue. It looked like it was part of a car bumper. You took it all out? Sophie asked, looking at the small metal piece that caused so much pain. Yes, every bit, Dr. Patel said. We fixed the tissue around it. Luckily, Julio's intestine was not hurt. When can I see him? Sophie asked, standing up quickly. He's in recovery now, Dr. Patel said. You can see him for a little while, but he's still sleeping from the medicine. In the recovery room, Julio lay on a warm pad, with machines watching him carefully. A part of his belly was shaved, showing neat stitches. He was breathing steadily. The next day is very important, Dr. Patel warned. But I am hopeful. His signs are better than we thought. After that, Julio seemed happier. He moved a little better and purred a bit louder. It was like, with the old injury gone, he could start to heal. Not just his body but his heart, too. Life became good again. Sophie talked with old friends, smiled more at work, and even spent time with a kind man named Evan who helped animals. They would sit on Sophie's porch, drinking tea, while Julio slept in the sun near their feet. Julio, now an old and wise cat, greeted Sophie every night with a soft, clear meow. He would sit on her lap while she read, his good eye watching her with love. Sometimes, his paw touched her chest to feel her heartbeat. His trust, once broken, was slowly built again, piece by piece. Every night, Sophie told him the same words. You're safe now. You're home. You'll never be alone again, Sophie told Julio. The future was unsure, and Julio was old now. But Sophie loved every moment with him. Their bond had stayed strong through all the hard times. Now they faced life together. Their love grew stronger with every challenge. Did you like this story? Have you ever felt happy to see a pet again after a long time apart? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Remember, love never gives up. Sometimes, it even brings lost friends back together. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.